Fire away.
Hi, good morning. Well, it's morning in Tucson. I'm Donna Reed. I traveled in Up With People 1976 Cast A, and super excited this morning to have Paul Cowell with me. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Nice to be here. In the
thank
Cactus
you.
Lounge, huh?
In the Cactus Lounge. I should get a cactus or something.
Yeah, there
Wait
should
minute,
be a
is there-
cactus here.
I don't, there's a kind of a cactus in one of those paintings. I
Yeah.
should get a cactus.
Yeah.
So, you and I have just chatted just briefly, and I know that the questions that we'll go through are a little bit different than
Right.
what I do with everybody else.
Yeah.
So first off, I know that you and your wife, Catalina, have been together for a long time. Can you share with how you and Catty met?
Well, yes, I mean, it's a long story.
Okay, well, you got like
but-
3 minutes,
Yeah,
Paul.
okay. We met at an international conference in Switzerland, at which she was participating and I was participating with my brothers
Okay,
in 1961.
61.
This was at Cowell in Switzerland,
Okay.
and we met there, and then we worked together. We traveled together and all over Italy and India and many different places. So
And was that through MRA then?
yes, it was. Yes, it
Okay,
was.
because I think
Yes.
I'm good friends with Heidi Saul.
Yeah,
And
oh yeah.
Heidi was in Co. I remember. That's the only reason I know much of anything about.
Yeah, well, Heidi's mom and
Dad.
and Don, I don't know if they were 61. They were maybe they were married at that time. I don't know.
Okay.
But I knew both, of course,
Yeah.
Heidi's mom and dad very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I live, believe it or not, Don lives in the same subdivision I do here in Tucson, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, he's still, yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So I just after I interviewed your brother Steve, I had some alumni say to me, how is it that in 1961, my parents, my father, if he was alive, would be kind of around the age of you and your brother.
Yep.
And they were raising a family in a little teeny town of 500 people in Ohio. And you guys were already traveling the world. And
Yeah.
what took you from where you were born into this arena?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, we had become a musical trio. We started singing and performing together back in 1948. And that's when we started. Steve said, let's start a band. And we did. And it was good fun. And it was a kind of a hobby. But then we started performing professionally. But we were still teenagers.
And where did you live? Where were you guys?
Well, we first of all in California when we started the band.
Okay.
And we moved to Indianapolis for 3 years,
Okay.
where we developed our musical talent further. And that's when we had our first radio and TV shows. And then we moved back to California. And then it kind of took off. We signed with Columbia Records, and we were playing every week in a big television show there with Tex Williams, and so I was just a junior in high school when that started. And then Steve actually started college. Steve actually started college. At that point. Anyway, we were still teenagers.
That's fascinating. And did your parents do music? Did they like?
Not particularly. They like music, and they dabbled in it, and we learned. Our dad had kind of an interest in barbershop quartets, so we learned a little bit about harmonizing, and
Wow.
And then. But then we ran into MRA, and we saw a play which I'm getting a call here. Okay, that's okay. Not to worry. I hope the sound doesn't bother you. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so that really caught our interest. It was an international, doing a lot of conflict resolution, conciliation work all over the world, and it appealed to our youthful idealism. And when I graduated from high school, and Steve was then he would have been a sophomore in college, and Ralph was just going to be going into his junior year in high school. We went to Cowell, Switzerland, to an international conference. Now that was 1953.
Oh wow!
And it was a pretty big deal. I mean, the foreign minister of France was there, the guy who started the European Union, really one of the architects of the European Union was there, and we wrote a song for him. We sang in French for the first time in a foreign language. And then we were invited to travel to take a gap year.
Okay.
And travel the world and go to all these interesting places and use our music as part of the MRA effort to change the world, and back in the 50s, there wasn't a lot going on as far as young people. In the 60s, there was a lot going on.
Right.
50s, there was not much out there where young people would get out there and try to change the world,
That's
so that really appealed to us. So we decided to kind of shift our focus with our music and headed in that direction. And so the gap year turned into a gap life.
I was going to say, when I
that was a problem.
When I post these, I put online what year they traveled, and for Steve, I put like all the years. So I'll probably do this. I'll do the same thing for you because it just kept going and going.
Yeah. Well, we starting in 1953, and then in 1960, there we were in the Congo. And we're part of a team that was invited to the Congo by the new leaders of the Congo to help the transition to independence.
So your brother talked a little bit about that, and we talked about the song. And it's funny because Steve goes,
Congo.
Vive le Congo. Steve goes, I didn't really do the words very much, and I remember that Ralph sang that, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And he told a couple stories. So. That piece, and then he talked about meeting Lynn and being in Lima, and all I can think about is I was in this little town in Ohio. I was 2 or 3, Anyway, So Paul, so you do this adventure, and then it kind of transitions into Up With People, and I've never really totally understand how that all transpired, and and all of that. But
join the club. On that one.
About what happened?
It did transition. It did, but it was in some ways, it was a transition. It was because it was those of us who had really been working with MRA all those years were the ones who started Up With People.
Right.
Blanton Belk and
right,
and all of us and so in that sense it was, but it was it was, I think we felt, as far as we were concerned, it was time to move on and do something different. And it took a little time over those years to sort of figure it out. But by 68, that's when we started fresh with a new concept. But with all the taking with us all the life lessons we learned and the international experience we had, that of course contributed to building Up With People. Had to.
So something I ask almost everybody, and I didn't think to ask you this right at the beginning, was tell everybody where you live now and what you're doing now. You and I have had a little bit of this conversation, but everybody probably wants to know.
Okay. Well, I turned 86 last summer.
That means you're going to turn 87 this summer.
I will be 87 this summer if all goes well. Yeah, and when and back in 2000, I was working on a part-time with Up With People, and going back a little further, when Up With People moved from Tucson to Denver, at that point I decided, as kind of the point man of kind of creating the shows, that I would turn that over to Pat Murphy, to the younger generation. And then I would work part-time as like a consultant. I was really kind of like on a half salary. So I kind of thought that could go on forever. Well, in 2000, we had to, scale down and regroup, and there was no budget for consultants. So I was at that point had to figure out, okay, I was also at the age where I could get Social Security
right
by then, but I still needed employment to do something new. So someone said we had moved to Seattle, or near Seattle. We're on Vashon Island, lovely island right next to Seattle, and someone had said, look, you could work for the school system. And of course, I don't have a college degree. That gap year was turned into a gap life, didn't allow me to, although Steve did later get his degree. But anyway, but I could work in the school system as a para-educator, which is it's like working as an assistant in the classroom with the teachers. So I said, well, I would do that while I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. This would be something temporary I could do and to tide me over. Well, I never did figure out what I was going to do next. And 19 years later, I finally retired at the age of 86.
Life's a journey.
And my advice to all of you out there, don't wait till you're 86 to retire. But in my case, I was very lucky. I was able to, but what I was doing was working in special education, and working both with developmentally disabled and with learning disabled. So that was, a challenging next phase of my life.
Yeah.
And it was a great continuum, having worked with young people all those years with Up With People.
Yeah.
To move into still continue working with young people, albeit maybe a little younger, but it was a good fit to be working in a high school for me.
And didn't you tell me that there was a young man that you'd continued to mentor or to work with?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, there's a young man who's highly autistic, but a good guitar player, a good musician, and I had done a lot of music with him through the years. And
that's
when
wonderful.
he moved out of the school system, I work twice a week. I work with him.
That's
great. Also not only in a musical, playing music with him, but also we've gotten into his piano tuning. So I'm becoming a piano tutor.
That's great.
That
young man has no idea how lucky he is, Paul. So
well, I don't know if we'll ever get to the piano tuning. It'll be an ongoing thing for many years. But anyway, so it was I one time back in 2011, I think it was 2011. I was the students asked me of the school asked me to do the commencement address for the staff, and I was really involved with the whole school. I wasn't just with the special ed area, and that was something I made a point. If I work in a place, you want to work with everybody,
Right.
and you're all part of the same team. But I was very honored to have been asked to do
That's so
commencement address for them. But I have also participate, and I this last March participate in the senior class staff benefit basketball game, and I suited up for that, and I did the
Good
warm-ups,
for
and I went in
you.
for a few minutes, and yeah, so I've done
So
that
what do they consider a senior? Because it seems like I think I'm a senior now, and I'm not sure I
Yeah.
like to speak those words, but I'm like, is that 55, 65, 75?
I don't know, but anyway, the kids get a great kick out of this old guy getting out there on the court.
I think that's
They
wonderful.
they enjoy
Yeah.
that. It's more for laughs. It's good for laughs at any rate.
But
But
it's
anyway,
awesome
so
that you're so.
that's been a great experience. Plus, I play on two. I'm in a couple of bands on the island. We do a lot of music, and
I remember seeing Ralph play a few times with the band here in town, playing
Yeah.
stand-up
Yep.
bass down at Monterey Court,
oh
and
yeah,
stuff like that. That was
Yeah.
super fun for me when he was
yeah.
doing
They
some
were
of the
good
bluegrass.
bands. I remember, and I remember his bands. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
So part of the whole Up With People journey for most of us is the songs we had in our show. And I know that you zoomed in with our cast and we talked about the songs from the 70s and things like that. But you worked, you wrote, you did a lot of songs for us through a lot of years.
Yeah.
What songs? Okay, and I'm going to tell you, you can't say Moonrider because everybody always says that, and you can't say Roads because everybody always says that. So what songs? I know I mentioned to you the other day, we talked about Sarajevo, but I can't remember the name of the song.
Yeah. Last Embrace.
Last Embrace.
Yeah.
And that was when, in the 90s?
That was 94. That was in the show that we produced in 1995 called The Festival. And that was our first show where we tried to kind of weave a story through it. And we had historic rivals, adversaries, as part of the storyline,
but with children in love. I'll never forget that. The first time I heard you do that, because I think you play the mandolin right at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
How a song evokes a feeling.
Yeah.
And the beginning music in that just takes you right to that part of the world.
Yeah, well, the beginning and the Last Embrace, and that's a song which I feel maybe one of the most important songs that I've been involved in, and it took a long time to get all the information on the story, because back in whenever that news item came out with this young couple trying to escape and then being shot and laying there on the bridge in each other's arms,
gives me chills.
I said, I wrote some lines. I wrote some lines for the song, but I didn't have enough information really to complete the story. But then there was a Frontline did a documentary on it called The Romeo and Juliet of Sarajevo.
Oh.
And so that had all the story of the Bosko and
Mira?
And Amira,
Yeah.
and Bosko and Amira. And so that I was able to, with Ralph helping out on it, and then Herbie on the music, we were able, with most of our songs, collaborated.
Yeah.
And But yeah, that was that song I think kind of represents, and though people tuning in right now may not even know the song, but
No, I know. And I hope
but
that these interviews inspire people to maybe listen to ones that they don't know.
yeah, so yeah, Last Embrace, and I don't know if I don't know if it's probably not on YouTube.
Well, a lot of people have uploaded things from their own shows. So
Yeah,
if festival,
okay.
if somebody
You-
uploaded, I bet it can be found.
Yeah, okay, good, okay,
Yeah.
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 Good.
What else? So I kind of fed you that one because you and I had already talked about
Yeah,
it. I was
right,
thinking
right.
about the Ukraine. Is there another song that after 30 or 40 or I don't know how many 50 years of writing that you just is really special to you? For Up With People. We don't care about what you did. No.
Well, Up With People. That was a little ditty that traveled well.
Yeah.
um, you know, the song, the last song that Ralph and I wrote, which means a lot because you know of Ralph's passing and we had, and he was at that point where he was in the throes of prostate cancer and getting, or just at the beginning of it, and is called a song called "The Water Is Rising," and and you know, it's about the environment basically.
Oh.
But it meant a lot, just in the sense that Ralph and I had our last collaboration on that song, and it was a little bit edgy, you know, a little edgy, and maybe too edgy. And when the cast was going to Houston, which and the song suggests that, you know, we may need to cut down our CO2s a little bit, and one of our sponsors in Houston suggested that we not do that song in Houston because of being a big oil producer, you know, big center of the oil industry.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's I mean, it shouldn't be a controversial song, but it's interesting that it was at that point in Houston.
You started in this journey in the 50s, and it's the 20s of the next century, and many of the same conversations are being had and heard.
Yeah, right.
And again, you and I have spoken, and when you talk to our cast and stuff about issues that continue to recur that you kind of think should be resolved by now, but doesn't
not
feel like there's a resolution. Yeah. Oh, all right. So we're going to switch gears real quick. What country or city in a country would you love if you could only go one more place, Paul? One place. And it's not Tucson, because I know you guys love Tucson, but if you could go one place somewhere in the world, where would you go?
Well, I think, and my wife and I both would agree with this, is to Italy. You know, we spent.
That's what Steve said.
Yeah, I'd love to sit out in a piazza somewhere and just be drinking cappuccinos and hanging out and
watching the people
go by, and then hike in the hills and Sicily. My wife and I took a trip back in 2005 or something. Went back to Italy, and this time it was just as tourists. All the time I've been in Italy, and I've spent 2 or 3 years there, if you put it all together.
Yeah.
And can speak some Italian. That's the other thing. I speak the language, and you know, to a certain extent. And but yeah, anyway, my wife and I took this trip a few years, and this time it was just to enjoy it as opposed to working. You know, all the other times we've been on tour,
yeah,
which have been great.
Yeah.
But
To just be the tourist.
Just to be in and just enjoy it. And
Nice.
and we
Nice.
love Sicily was kind of special. We love Sicily.
It's beautiful, the coast down there.
Yeah. And just it's very different. It's like a different country almost.
Yeah. So I think you know that I speak French. I know that Ralph knew that I spoke French because we talked a lot about Stroyes and the relationship with the family Stroy.
Je parle français aussi.
Oui, ça c'est bon. Et maintenant, j'étudie l'italien. So I'm studying Italian, and this is the first thing I learned.
Italian, oui.
Io sono donna.
Si.
And I'm like, donna. Oh, so woman is my name in Italian.
Sono una donna.
It's super convenient that that's my name, but I laugh at how when you're learning like a 3-year-old learns how like one day my sentence that I had to say was like the men write in the sugar, and I was like, why are the men writing in the sugar? Because that doesn't seem super practical, but it's fun.
That's good. Glad you're it's Italian. We had to. Ralph studied French. Ralph finished his high school on the road with MRA.
Oh, okay.
And but one of his courses was French. That was the language he was studying.
Okay.
And of course in the Congo, which was was one of the national languages, French.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of is the national language because otherwise it's only sort of regional languages.
Right.
And so I had to buckle down, and I worked, and we all had to learn French, and at least enough to be able to converse and carry on. And it's a great language. I love French.
It is. Yeah. All right, so I know my little timer is going to come on here shortly. So I told Steve you're planning to be in Phoenix, right? You guys are okay.
Yes.
I'm not working this year, but I'm going to come up on Saturday, and I sure hope to see you.
Well, you can come and just enjoy it. Like
I know,
you're not
right?
working it, you can enjoy it. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And then I know you guys are headed to Chicago in September for the rendezvous.
Right.
Ron Beckett said he and Pat are working on.
He and Bonnie Knight.
Bonnie Knight, right? Yep.
Yeah, Bonnie.
It's been fun for me to get to know those guys a little bit better because I only had met Ron over at Bob Huff's one time, so it was kind of fun.
And I saw your interview with Ron.
That was fun. That was fun. So if you could say, I asked your brother this, so if you could say one thing to the group of people here or to young people considering a gap year, or if the whole world was going to listen to this, which we know they're not, If they were, Paul, what would you say about the journey that we have ahead of us? What would you want to instill in us, in me in my 60s, but in a 20-year-old or a 14-year-old grandchild that you might have? What would you say?
Boy, oh boy, it's I mean, first of all, I think the world is in a tough place now. I mean, historically, I think, after the Cold War ended, we thought maybe things were gonna there'd be a time of peace, but the I would say two things. Get involved and in a way that brings people together in some format that brings people together. I mean, there's many different things one can do, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something.
There you go.
And it's a little frustrating with the weight of the world crisis. We're heading into a food crisis now, and to be open-minded, to listen. We're so polarized now. It's almost that we can't it's hard to hear the people who, don't agree with us
Think differently. Yep.
and think or think differently and are different. You have to go into this time in the world open-minded, but get involved and be kind. I think kindness is it's very trite. It's a bit of, but
Such a tiny word, but means so much, right?
yeah. It's and do get involved and do your part and bring it about the change that you want to see. And maybe the change you want to see is different than the change someone else wants to see. But
That's where we need to come together.
yeah, but keep an open mind. And
I appreciate
that's hard. And that's getting harder and harder, I think.
it. Is.
Yeah.
It is.
So I probably will think of often when a question like that comes up, you think I should have said something else.
I get that.
However, whatever I've said, that's one thing. That's one thing to do.
That's one thing to do. So
Yeah.
you can go to the YouTube channel where other people are commenting and you can go, hey, I thought of this afterwards.
Yeah. Well,
So thank you, Paul.
Yeah, well, thank you, Donna. Very nice. È stato molto un piacere, un gran piacere. Yes. I'll say, okay, I'm a little Italian there. It's been a great pleasure. Great pleasure.
It is always a great pleasure.
Yeah.
I count myself as so fortunate to have gotten to know you a little bit as an adult, not just as the 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, well.
That gave you a hard time about, I don't want to rule the world, when I thought it was so.
Yeah, well, there's and that's a song that there's more to it than meets
I
the
know.
eye.
I need to get the rest of the story.
Yeah.
So, all right, Paul, I'm gonna turn us off. You can stay on. I'm just gonna
Take
keep the
care.
recording and I'll talk to you for just a couple more minutes. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, yep.